Okay, welcome everyone. We've got quite a story to unpack today based on the sources you sent in. It's a really complex and honestly quite disturbing case from Mexico.
That's right. Our task today is to sift through all this information, articles, reports, and really pull out the key details, the core facts to understand what happened.
We're looking at a case that, well, it gripped Mexico back in late 2014 after a truly gruesome discovery in Mexico City.
And at the center are two main figures, Maria Casco, a psychotherapist from a pretty prominent family, and Alan Calaracuya, a successful businessman. Their lives intersected in a really tragic way.
Absolutely. It's a story about public image versus, well, private reality, two complex people, a series of events leading to something horrific, and a lot of questions left behind.
So let's start with Maria Casco. Who was she, based on the sources?
Well, publicly, she was seen as, charming, athletic, dark hair, dark eyes, and her background was significant. Her father was Dr. Alberga Font.
Right, a very famous psychiatrist, highly respected, known for his work, a big deal in the mental health field there.
Exactly. And Maria seems set to follow right in his path. The sources say she really idolized him, studied psychiatry herself, graduated with honors.
Became a psychotherapist, opened a clinic with her father, focusing on things like eating disorders, depression, relationship issues.
Yeah, so her public persona was solid, capable, smart, successful professionally.
But the sources suggest her personal life, especially her first marriage, was very different. She had 2 kids from that marriage.
But apparently it was a difficult relationship, lots of arguments.
Yes, frequent, intense arguments. And disturbingly, some sources mentioned these sometimes became physical altercations, even witnessed by the children sometimes.
That's rough. And this history seems to build towards a really critical, awful event. After the divorce, they had a co-parenting setup.
Right, and one weekend, her ex-husband came to visit. An argument started, and it escalated quickly.
Then...
According to the reports, Maria grabbed a hammer and struck him. He died as a result.
Wow. And the daughter saw this.
Her eldest daughter, yes. Apparently, she witnessed it and called for help immediately. Maria was arrested. Her defense. She claimed self-defense. Said her ex was jealous, aggressive.
So there was a trial for this first incident?
Yes. In June 2012, the daughter testified about seeing prior abuse as well. The court's decision was interesting.
How so?
They ruled it was homicide, yes, but not intentional homicide.
Not intentional. So what did that mean for sentencing?
A surprisingly short sentence. Just 1 year and 4 months.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
A year and 4 months for a homicide, even if not deemed intentional? That seems remarkably light.
It does stand out, doesn't it? But here's where her public image story gets even more complex. She didn't even serve that full time.
How did that happen?
Well, the sources point to a lot of support from women's rights groups, anti-violence organizations. They framed her as a victim fighting back against domestic abuse.
So that narrative gained traction.
It seems so. With that support and emphasizing the history of abuse, she successfully appealed the conviction based on self-defense. She was released after just a few months.
And then she went back to work as a therapist.
Yes. And this whole ordeal, paradoxically almost, seemed to change her public image for many. She wasn't just a therapist anymore. She was seen as this figure of resilience, a survivor. It actually boosted her popularity, her credibility in some circles.
That's quite a turnaround. How public perception and advocacy can reshape a narrative like that. It's powerful.
It really is. It shows how a specific framing of events can sometimes overshadow the complexities, the violence involved.
Okay, so with this changed public image, this history behind her, where does her story go next? This is where Alan Calaracuya comes in, right?
Exactly. Alan Calaracuya. The sources describe him as a wealthy businessman. Came from another prominent Mexico City family. His father had a background not just in business, but also as a former head of special services.
But Alan himself, his path wasn't quite so straightforward, was it? The sources mentioned some trouble in his youth.
Yeah, apparently as a teenager, he was involved in running an illegal import network. Quite serious stuff.
And he got caught.
He did. But then, in a pretty dramatic turn, his father apparently stepped in, took the responsibility, and actually served time for it. Cut about 20 years initially, though it seems he was released early.
Wow. The father took the fall for him.
Seems that way. After that, the family business reportedly went strictly legitimate, and they really expanded their empire.
But despite the business success, Alan had his own struggles.
It appears so. The material mentions problems with alcohol, depression too, especially after his own first divorce. And that's what led him towards Maria's world.
Seeking therapy.
Yes. Initially, he went to see Dr. Font, Maria's father, at their clinic.
Okay.
And apparently Dr. Font sometimes referred Alan to Maria for sessions.
And that's how they connected.
Yes. And somewhere along the line, during these sessions, that professional therapist-client relationship reportedly crossed a line. It became romantic.
Oof. That's a major ethical breach for a therapist, surely.
Absolutely. Huge ethical questions there. It's even mentioned that Alan's ex-wife filed some kind of complaint about it to an ethics committee.
Did anything come of that?
Doesn't seem like it progressed very far, according to the sources. No real action was taken, it seems.
So despite the ethical issues, despite Alan's struggles, they got together.
They did. And apparently it moved fast. They kept it quiet initially, especially from Alan's family, though Maria's father knew. Then quite suddenly, they decided to get married in April 2014.
That quick. His family must have been surprised.
Reports say they were shocked. And significantly, Alan didn't invite his family to the small wedding ceremony.
That definitely suggests some tension there, or maybe he knew they wouldn't approve.
Could be. And unfortunately, this second marriage seems to have gone downhill almost immediately.
Really? After such a quick decision to marry?
Yeah, the sources say things soured very quickly. Constant arguments, apparently. Over small things, over business decisions. Both were described as strong-willed people, likely with different ways of doing things.
And Maria wasn't happy.
She reportedly felt unhappy, restricted in the marriage.
Was there anything specific that escalated things?
Well, according to Maria's later statements, a big issue was her finding evidence that Alan was communicating with other women on his phone. That apparently caused her a lot of distress.
Okay, so jealousy, unhappiness, clashing personalities. It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
And it seems to have reached a boiling point at a family party. October 31st, 2014. Halloween.
What happened there?
Maria went with Alan. It was the first time she'd met many of his relatives because of the small, family-less wedding. The sources claim she felt really judged, disrespected, heard whispers that she wasn't good enough for him.
That must have been incredibly awkward and hurtful.
Apparently, it hit her hard. She reportedly felt after that party that the marriage just couldn't work, that it was unsustainable.
So that party was the breaking point. What happened right after?
Well, reports indicate Alan texted his family when they got home, just saying he'd arrived safely. Standard stuff.
But then he disappeared.
Exactly. He didn't show up for work the next few days, couldn't be reached. His family, his colleagues, they started to get worried.
Understandably.
Then, a few days later, a weird message comes from Alan's phone, sent to his family. It said he and Maria were taking a trip, would be gone for a while.
A trip? That sounds convenient and suspicious given what we know now.
Very suspicious. It turned out later, of course, that this was likely fake. A way to buy time.
So, who raised the alarm first?
Well, concerns grew. Maria's father, Dr. Font, apparently called Alan's family because he couldn't reach Maria either. He was told about the trip and seemed surprised she hadn't mentioned it.
Okay.
Then Dr. Font reportedly called Alan's family again later, this time saying Maria was back, but needed urgent psychological help. He described her as detached, depressed, and apparently blamed Alan's cheating for her state.
Wow. So Alan is missing, there's a fake trip message, and Maria is suddenly back and severely distressed, according to her father.
Precisely. That combination, the disappearance, the weird message, Maria's reported condition, pushed Alan's family to act. They apparently used their connections to get the police involved quickly in finding Alan.
And that search led to the discovery.
Tragically, yes. November 6, 2014. Police got a tip about a black bag found in Mexico City. Inside, a human torso.
Oh, God.
And it didn't stop there. The next day, more bags were found, scattered in different parts of the city, containing limbs, hands, feet. But no head was ever recovered.
Dismembered and scattered. That's incredibly brutal.
Incalculated. The sources emphasize the mutilation, fingertips removed, teeth pulled out, clearly done to make identification difficult, impossible even.
They did identify him.
Forensics confirmed all the parts were from one person. The timing lined up perfectly with Alan's disappearance. Police checked for a match.
And it was Alan.
Yes. Family identification, forensic technology.
Yeah.
It was confirmed. The remains were Alan Kalarakuya. The nature of it all, the dismemberment, the attempt to hide identity, it was chilling.
So once the body was found and identified as Alan, the focus must have immediately shifted to Maria.
Absolutely. As his wife, the last person known to be with him, she was the prime suspect. But initially, accessing her wasn't straightforward.
Why not? Her father had said she was distressed, right?
Right. Her family apparently cited her severe emotional state, her depression, as reasons the police couldn't speak with her immediately. They essentially blocked access for a bit.
But the police pushed forward.
They had to. They got a search warrant for the house she and Ellen shared. And during that search, they noticed something in the backyard. Some disturbed earth.
And they dug it up.
They did. And that's what they found. Well, crucial evidence. Human fingertips and teeth buried there.
Oh my God, buried in their own backyard.
Yes. And inside the house, they found traces of blood. More blood traces were also found in the trunk of Maria's car.
So, physical evidence directly linking the scene to the victim. Did the fingertips and teeth match Alan?
DNA confirmed that they were Alan's. This discovery was obviously huge, incredibly shocking for the public. It turned the case into a massive sensation.
Was there any other evidence? Witnesses?
There was. An elderly neighbor came forward. Someone who apparently had trouble sleeping. This neighbor reported seeing Maria late one night, right after that family party.
What did they see?
They saw her struggling to drag a large, heavy-looking bag to her car. Described her as acting nervous, secretive. It fit the timeline perfectly.
So the physical evidence, the neighbor's testimony, it was all pointing directly at Maria. How did she react when confronted?
Initially, she denied everything. Stuck to the story that she didn't know anything, that she was just a victim of his cheating.
But the evidence was pretty overwhelming.
Exactly. Faced with remains in the yard, the blood in her car, the neighbor's account, she confessed. She admitted to killing Alan.
And her reasons? What did she say drove her to do it?
She gave a few reasons, according to the reports. Anger over how his family treated her at that party, his alleged cheating, and she also brought up alleged physical abuse by Alan. She apparently compared it to her first case with her ex-husband.
Right, invoking that history again? Did she detail how she did it?
Yes, her confession was reportedly quite detailed, chillingly so. She said she planned it soon after they got back from the party.
Planned it, so premeditated.
That's what her confession suggested. She said she used strong sedatives, potentially maybe obtained through her clinic connections, mixed them in milk for Alan. Waited until he was deeply asleep.
And then
she smothered him with a pillow.
Jesus. And the dismemberment. Why?
Her explanation was practical, in a horrifying way. She said Alan was too large for her to move the body whole. She decided to dismember him. She apparently bought an electric saw specifically for this.
Using her medical knowledge?
It seems that way. The reports mention her using her knowledge to remove the identifying parts, fingertips for prints, teeth for dental records. Buried those in the yard. Packed the rest of the body parts into bags.
And then drove around dumping them.
Drove outside the immediate area, yes.
Yeah.
Scattered the bags in different locations across the city where they were eventually discovered.
And the fake text message about the trip?
She admitted to sending that too, using Alan's phone. Said it was to buy time, throw off anyone looking for him. The level of planning, the execution, the deliberate steps to hide identity, and all points to a very calculated act.
So this all came out in a second trial?
Yes, around December 2014. All the evidence, her confession, her claims, including the abuse allegations, were presented.
What did the court make of her claim that Alan abused her? Did they find evidence for that?
According to the sources, the court found there wasn't enough evidence presented during the trial to actually support those specific claims of physical abuse by Alan.
So what was the final verdict based on?
It seems the court focused heavily on the clear evidence of planning the murder and then the very deliberate, extensive actions she took afterwards to conceal the crime. The dismemberment, scattering the parts, the cover-up attempts.
And the verdict was?
Guilty of intentional homicide.
And the sentence?
Life imprisonment. Reports mention other related charges, like concealing evidence, probably factored into the maximum sentence too.
A life sentence? Given her background, her father's status. This must have caused a huge public reaction.
Oh, enormous. It was national news. People were fascinated, horrified. A lot of discussion focused on Maria's mental state. How could a psychotherapist, someone meant to heal minds, do something so violent?
People must have wondered about her father too, Dr. Font. Did he know? Could he have seen signs?
Those questions were definitely asked publicly. The sources touch on this reaction, noting, that mental health professionals aren't immune to having their own serious problems. It's something acknowledged in medical training, apparently.
It's hard to know what her actual diagnosis might have been, if any.
Exactly. The sources don't offer a definitive diagnosis, but regardless of any underlying issues, the crime itself was just brutal and shocking.
So, looking back at all this source material, it's a journey through Maria Casco's life. The public image, the hidden chaos, the violence in her relationships, culminating in Alan's horrific murder.
Yeah, the contrast is stark. Successful professional on one hand, but this private reality of turmoil and extreme violence on the other, it really shows how unresolved issues can just explode outwards.
So thinking about what you, the listener, can take away from this, maybe it's that old saying about appearances being deceiving. Or maybe it's about the devastating fallout when internal struggles aren't addressed, even in people who seem to have it all together.
It definitely leaves you thinking, how do we even begin to reconcile someone's public face, their competence, with the potential for such hidden darkness and violence?
And maybe the most unsettling question, how does a past filled with trauma or conflict shape what someone does next? Sometimes it seems in ways that are just profoundly disturbing and hard to grasp. A really chilling story about the complexities of the human mind.